Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's a beautiful morning. I'm Kyle Kikyole.
And I'm Dayo Makine. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, so you know, when you see this attack formation, this 4-3-3, you know we're going to start with the dailies this morning. Maybe that's what Liverpool may play. You never can tell.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, so today we'll have Mr. Dayo here with us this morning to take us through some of these headlines. Good morning. Good to see you again today.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Let's start with Nigerian Tribune. We all know what they will talk about this morning, don't we? Emir of Kano. How Sanusi walked into dethronement. Ado Bayero named new Emir. We will pursue case in courts to logical end. Sanusi's lawyers, heavy security in Kano. And it just keeps going on. You know, if they had a lot more time to put to bed, you never can tell what they may come up with, but it is the big one. And everyone, I mean, a lot of people are talking about this, and why not?
Ground-shaking events.
Yeah.
It's not every day that a monarch gets dethroned, especially a popular one. I think it's the way our society is ordered today. I think the monarchy is supposed to be sovereign in its own way and has had its own locus of authority over the years. But there's been a natural friction between the government and the traditional institutions. So when this conflict goes into overdrive, things like this do happen.
So who knows what will happen eventually? You know, there was this time where we were amending the Constitution, or the National Assembly were amending the Constitution, and they talked about giving the first chiefs, traditional rulers, some authority within the Constitution. So with issues like this, do you ever see that happening, that they have legal authority?
Where we came from way back in the day, the traditional rulers were the supreme authority. And over time, that authority was whittled down as we became more and more formalized, especially when we took on a westernized style of governance. Where the beginning of the end for the monarchy in Nigeria came when the Obas became civil servants, essentially, when they became paid staff of the government and they're on a salary. And all of a sudden now you find that the governor, of course, as the paymaster, has the wherewithal to dictate to the traditional ruler. So over time he's become just a symbolic personality with very little substantive authority, and he's subservient to the government of the day. So ultimately, I do think there should be some sort of amendment to the Constitution that vests them with formal authority to where within their own domains they should be above any other authority.
Well, it's going to be kind of unique because they're not elected in the way they ascend the throne. So is that going to be affected with this law, if at all it happens?
You might think that they're not elected, but
are they?
They're kingmakers who speak for the people, who ultimately sit down and decide who this person is going to be. Yeah. They have an election among themselves. And take for example, even in America, the president is not voted in directly. It's the electoral college that determines who the president is. So they're representatives of the people. In this case, the kingmakers within that domain, they speak for the people because they can't have everybody coming out to come and cast ballots for a king. Now, even after the kingmakers decide, they consult the deities. Many situations, especially in the South, they consult the deities. Yes, they talk to Ifa and they talk to many of the traditional deities.
How do we verify those deities that they speak with?
It's not an issue of verification. It's an issue of the fact that the kingmakers have spoken to the deities. The deities have told them what they want. Yeah, and those kingmakers are speaking for the people.
But that's the thing. If they're going to have a force of law and the backing of the law, are we going to rely on them saying, well, I spoke to the deity, this is what the deity wants? How do you justify that within the law?
You have to trust in somebody. What is the electoral body, the electoral college that chooses the president? On what grounds do they choose?
You said something earlier, and
yes,
kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah.
You said they don't have any substantive authority
anymore.
What then is the relevance? It might be a little provocative, but then what then is the relevance if they don't have so much authority?
It's an institution. It's a cultural, traditional symbol that serves for the unity and the cohesion of the people. He embodies the essence of his domain. He's seen as a combination of a spiritual, traditional father figure. But other than mediating disputes and perhaps a little bit of land matters here and there, he has no substantive authority. He can't pass a law, he can't enforce a law, he can't arrest anybody. He really has no substantive authority. Take, for example, the Queen of England. She's a symbolic monarch. She has no primary powers per se. But you wouldn't find Boris Johnson able to take her out willy-nilly. He'd still have to go back to Parliament, who are the people. And for several years,
she's got a unique role.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. And I think the Obas here, the traditional rulers here, also have a unique role. They are the symbol and the representation of the very domains they represent.
Well, there'll be a lot more talk on this one, and there are several others. This piece, just right above that lead story, APC crisis, state chairman back Oshiomhole. So this is another thing that just keeps going back and forth. Who knows what and how this will eventually end? Any ideas?
Well, I think the Lagos APC was instrumental into Oshiomhole becoming the chairman to begin with. So this is just payback time. It's a quid pro quo. Okay, we supported you. We supported you to get into the chairmanship. You supported us. So it's time for us to look after each other. But APC is in turmoil. Even in Lagos State yesterday, there were issues with some members of the party. 2 of the party officials were impeached from their positions. 2 were suspended indefinitely. So it's crisis all over the place with the APC. And I think Chairman Oshiomhole is probably the point man behind all the internal crisis.
You see 2023 in the crystal ball with your crystal ball?
As a journalist, I try not to predict. I hesitate to speculate because I think we are very bad at that job. There was no respectable journalist in America in 2017 who didn't think Hillary Clinton was going to win. And all of us got eggs on our faces. So I don't think it's our job to be predicting. I think what we should do is analyze things in a way to help people make sense of what's happening.
Bookmakers. Bookmakers. They have to do what they have to do.
Help people
That's the fun, isn't it?
Help people make sense of what's happening in the news. But let's not speculate about 2023.
How about this one? Kill social media bill. Stakeholders tell Senate. This is, definitely this is something that's been ongoing. They were going to have a public hearing. And even the NCC themselves are saying no to social media bill. Do you think Senate will listen to them this time?
I think there's enough of an outcry, a public outcry, to where the Senate will be sensitive to the thoughts of all the stakeholders are against this thing. And it's just draconian. They want to lock people up for saying things. They want to abridge free speech, freedom of the press. It's all endangered. And that is essentially the bulwark of our democracy, is protecting that democracy. We need free speech. We need a free press. To me, the laws of libel, laws of defamation, those kind of laws are the avenues with which we should prosecute hate speech and social media, fake news, and all these kind of things. I think we have laws on the books that, if effectively deployed, can restrict this kind of behavior as opposed to this sort of bill.
Let me look at this this other story at the bottom strip. I don't think anybody wants to speculate on this one because it's a risky one to do. Coronavirus. Impact on economy becoming severe, as ascribed to the CBN. But look at the writers. Buhari sets up committee to assess effects of outbreak on economy. Stock market suffers massive loss of 329 billion naira. Nigeria confirms second coronavirus case. I mean, you'd have thought that the stock market here will not take a hit on this kind of things, but apparently that might be underestimated.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. I mean, it's a worldwide crisis, and stock markets in other countries are taking a hit. It will have a ripple effect on us. First of all, the thing is, prices of oil are crashing. Once prices of oil are crashing, every other aspect of our economy catches pneumonia. It's automatic. So stock markets in turmoil. The Dow Jones Index for the last couple of days in New York has been terribly turbulent and has been going down and losing, and I don't think Nigeria can be immune. Forget the fact, I think we've managed the coronavirus outbreak very well. that up to date, we're just having a second confirmed case. And the second case actually was person-to-person contact with the index case that was the first confirmed case. So it's not as if anybody has slipped through the barriers put up. This is not a new situation coming from outside. This is just somebody who has been in isolation, by the way, from the beginning. The moment the index case got confirmed, all the people he was exposed to were quarantined. And this person just happened to have contact. So I think we've done very well. And I don't think there's any cause for alarm. For us to have only two cases confirmed at this point, we're doing well.
All right, don't forget to check out the back page. Ebunolu Adegborowa SAN is taking on the agenda-setting role for the NBA NEC meeting. That is Tribune this morning.
Oh, let's take a look at the Daily Independent. What a day yesterday. I'm looking at the headlines and I'm spoiled for choice. But let's begin with the big one. Oil plunge may push Nigeria to devalue naira. Now, this is something that has been, well, conversation for a while, but here we are right now. Do you see this as something that will happen in coming days? Because there's been a lot of back and forth on it.
If oil prices fall below $30 and it's already verging in that neighborhood, I don't see how we can escape devaluation. We're an oil-based economy. All our foreign earnings are based on oil revenue. And now there's this price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia that is threatening to even lower the prices of oil even more. So how do we sustain the naira? The naira essentially is backed by our oil sales.
You know, because this is coming from a financial institution, I'd like to see what the government will say about this. But then some believe this is a blessing in disguise for Nigeria. Do you share that sentiment?
No, I don't. No. A devaluation of the naira at this point in time, I think, will be more hurtful. Not being an economist and not being able to properly give the basis, I think the way the economy is at this point in time, where there's too much poverty in the land, there's high unemployment, there's too much importation of goods. At the moment, majority of what we consume and use in this country are brought
and the borders are still closed.
And the borders are still closed. So
to speak.
So
right.
Devaluation will mean all the things that are coming in are more expensive.
So maybe we should open those borders, maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, take a look at this one. The big picture shows members of civil society groups demonstrating during that public hearing on the social media bill at the National Assembly. I saw a lady who was not allowed to get into that public hearing, and she says she was told she was indecently dressed. And this lady was putting on an Ankara outfit, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't look indecent. But a lot of people were not happy they couldn't gain access.
How did I miss that?
I know, a lot of people were not happy they couldn't get access to this. But see this, coronavirus, FG steps up efforts as Nigeria records second case. You talked about that much earlier. But you see the writers in touch with U.S. CDC over Nigerian infected in Atlanta. That made news yesterday. But also in Lagos, the government has named Godfrey Sadiq as missing contact to index case. This got a lot of people worried. The fact that these people they seem to be, under the radar. Nobody knows where they are, and they seem to be major when it comes to this case, the index case.
Yes, because the two of them were on the same flight with the gentleman who came in, who's been confirmed as being infected, and they've not been able to find these two people. Apparently, they gave false information on their landing card for whatever reason. For a long time, for security purposes, many people don't put their real information on the landing cards.
Why do you think that's the case?
Because you're scared that scammers and funny people will get a hold of your information, and you might be at risk. There's a security implication with putting your information in the public realm.
What about the right phone number?
How do you know where that phone number goes? It could get in the hands of people. Every other day you're getting a phone call from somebody saying, I'm calling you from your bank and I need you to confirm that your ATM card has not been deactivated. And he's a scammer just trying to get your details. So people have this insecurity about revealing their information in places where they don't know what's going to happen.
I think that also generally puts the whole information database, or whatever it is that we'll call it, at its own risk altogether. On the one hand, giving false information in itself is criminal.
Yes.
On the other hand, every Godfrey and every Sadiq right now will be looked at.
Well, there's a full name. There's a full name. You take a look at the pages of Daily Independent for the full name. Okay, it's not just Godfrey and Sadiq. They have, in fact, one of them has a middle name just to pinpoint, so you don't go mixing up every Sadiq.
Again, going back by what he said. How do we know that's the real name?
Yeah, government has a golden opportunity here because we have various databases that have our demographics. We have BVN, we have voter card, we have driver's license, we have national ID cards. I think they need to harmonize all these informations under one umbrella into one database. In this case, you buy a ticket, you give your name. Once your passport data is captured, they know who you are, where you are, how to get in touch with you. They know all that. But because we have discrete databases that are not harmonized, it makes this kind of lapse possible.
So you see the Lagos State government begging Nigerians for information to help track them. So, yeah, let's get to work, as it were. You see some other stories, the Kano story, you know, the part about the deity you spoke on earlier got me. So, you know, cases going to the court now.
Yes.
I mean, how do you get, you know, if imagine you want to get a witness, and you say, I call the deity to the stand. It would be quite interesting.
We're called the human representation of the deity, the person
How do we know he's telling the truth?
We don't know. How do we even know that the human person standing in front of the court is telling the truth?
so
but here's the thing. I think that while the governor has the authority to depose, I worry a little bit about this banishment aspect. I mean, if you saw the way it played out yesterday, I think it was a blight on the monarchy. I think it was demeaning and belittling. I think the man was not a national security threat that he had to be escorted out under armed guard. I think it was embarrassing. I saw what was purported to be a video of him arriving in Abuja out of a private plane on his way to exile in Siberia. And he cut a pitiable figure coming out of that plane. And I just looked and I said, this is not right. I think there's got to be a better way to address this issue. I think that we should give pride of place to our institutions and not desecrate them.
Do you see a comeback, though? There have been theories saying that he will come back in some other form. But do you see a comeback?
Well, there's precedence for a comeback to the throne. It's happened before.
Maybe not the throne.
But yeah. I think he's in the public space enough as a social activist. As a matter of fact, what really was the last straw that broke this camel's back was a speech he gave at Governor El-Rufai's 60th birthday, in which he basically chastised all the northern leaders, telling them that as long as they continue to sit idly by and watch the North wallow in poverty, they essentially are useless to society. He really tongue-lashed them, and that was the beginning of the roller coaster ride to his demise. Now, I see that he's been enough of a social activist, and he's somebody who, when he speaks, seems to make sense and resonates with the concerns of the people. So I foresee that he could very well still have a public role. Maybe, quote unquote, they said President Obasanjo wrote a letter to him yesterday saying him being deposed is both good and bad. It's bad because he didn't deserve it, but it's also good supposedly because he can now serve a larger constituency, which is the country.
That's a suspect.
Yeah. You speculate.
I speculate. That's why I use the word purported.
I was waiting for that. What's going to happen?
Hoisted by my own petard. Hoisted by my own
It's
petard.
a second nature.
Serve the nation, and that's a big word. Anyway, the Guardian newspaper is next and leads with the same Kano story. The Kano royal crisis. My first reaction to this was like, that caption, but then we've spoken a lot about that. In and out, you see both emirs there. But right under the pictures, right on the front page, is something, again, that we've talked about a little. FG proposes a budget cut as projected oil price hovers around $20. Now, I'm wondering, because with the committee that the federal government has set up, I'm wondering what we're going to have to do beyond devaluing the naira. I don't even see devaluing the naira being an immediate thing. So if we're going to have a budget cut, how can you devalue the naira tomorrow? You can't devalue the naira tomorrow.
Isn't he speculating so fast?
He's analyzing.
No. So what do you make of this? So this budget cut, $20 a barrel, less than 2 million barrels, a day. If we go by the result of that meeting, What's likely to happen? Again, please don't say we're trying to make you speculate.
No, not at all. There clearly will be a big shortfall in the revenue that will be generated vis-a-vis the budget and what we need to spend. So maybe it's rather fortuitous that at this point in time the president has asked for a loan, because that loan can bridge the shortfall. And of course he's been criticized by the fact that he's asking for all this money. So maybe now he's turning out to be wiser than we thought, because all of a sudden those funds could bridge the gap.
Do we assume that they saw this coming? Many don't think so.
He could be clairvoyant for all we know. Perhaps he did see it coming.
Or have a crystal ball, just like
Yes,
you put it the
that's
other time.
quite
But then, where does this put the states? Because dwindling revenue means even the states will have less to share with the federal government.
Well, the states have been under pressure to boost their internally generated revenue. And I see many of the states coming up with various ways to increase. This notion of going cap in hand to Abuja every month and waiting for this statutory allocation to come, it's not sustainable. At the end of the day, each state needs to come up with its own creative ways to generate its own revenue to a point where, I mean, look at Lagos State, for example. For all the years that President Obasanjo withheld Lagos State's money because Governor Tinubu created some additional local councils, Lagos was able to survive. That's based on the strength of its IGR, which is second to none in the country. Other states are starting to do this. If you look at states like Akwa Ibom, states like even Oyo, states in the north like Kaduna, they're starting to do a lot of things to where they become less dependent on government allocation. Nonetheless, when the center catches a cold, the states catch pneumonia. So of course, if there's a dwindle in the oil revenue and reduces the allocation to the states, there will be a problem.
All right, so let's take a look at the next one that we've got this morning. Moving beyond The Guardian, they're also copiously highlighting that one. Well, we just saw this one, guys. Can we flip to the very next one? Okay, that should be the blueprint then. Look at that. Why Emir Sanusi was dethroned, ex-monarch, disrespectful, banished to Nasarawa, Kano government, aka Siberia. Emir Aminu Bayero steps in. It's illegal. Tofa, your removal sad because you didn't deserve it. Obasanjo, that letter also circulating. Quite a number of people might have seen that. And then just right above that one, another recession looms as oil prices drop to 33%. Okay, so that is a matter that you equally have highlighted. But how about this one? IPPS, ASU embarks on 2-week warning strike. But they said that they wanted government to implement the agreement they signed between 2009 and I think 2013 or thereabout. But many thought, okay, is that really the case, or is it really IPPIS, as they say?
Yeah, a lot more people think it's this IPPIS, and that they simply they're not interested in this very transparent accounting system that plugs all the leakages and opportunity for monies to flow in places it shouldn't flow. There will always be some pushback whenever you're stepping on toes and whenever there's situations where areas by which people have been benefiting, you're suddenly cutting them out. So I think this is corruption fighting back.
All right, that's Blueprint this morning.
Well, let's take a look at leadership front page. Aminu Bayero replaces Sanusi II as the Emir of Kano. Deposed monarch moved out of Kano. ACF calls for calm and understanding. I think that's really important, because if you say, yeah, maybe they don't have the power, but they have the influence. And I mean, you saw the videos, the amount of people that were actually, waving and, showing solidarity with him. And you see right under the nameplate, coronavirus threatens 2 trillion naira revenue target from maritime sector. I mean, this is huge, and you see that IP story. But take a look at that. Oshiomhole stays away as police reopen APC secretariat. So the secretariat is open now, but then it appears the comrade is not. So which of the court orders are we going with now with this particular move?
There's 2 conflicting orders from 2 courts of equal jurisdiction. How do you know which to follow? But I admire the fact that he stayed away. First of all, that was the initial court ruling that first came out, was that he's suspended. But as long as there's a conflict, one says stay away, one says you're suspended, one says you're not, I think it behooves him to step back while this controversy rages until a court of superior jurisdiction actually makes a determination. So I think that's an honorable step he made yesterday by not turning up.
We look forward to more honorable steps, but that's the leadership this morning.
Oh yes, the Vanguard newspaper has this one, quite a dramatic front page if you ask me. Emir of Sanusi, second dethroned, banished, crack widens as acting scribe takes charge. COVID-19, FG confirmed second case, among several other stories on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
All right, so there you go. That's the end of look at some of the dailies. We do thank you for coming on this morning. Dayo, just taking us through some of this. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.